So, Susannah, welcome. I'm going to give you I'm not going to give you, I'm going to give them your bio. And then if you want to stand up, you can stand up. If you want to stay seated, I'll give you the microphone. You can stay seated. Oh, you've got one of those. Awesome.
I have one of these. Yes.
So, Susannah, I have almost got your bio here, but I was about to read your husband's bio. That's awkward. There we go. Susannah Darling Khan is co-director of the School of Movement Medicine, which we experienced a snippet of this morning, alongside husband Yaacov Darling Khan and co-author of Movement Medicine, published by Hay House. Having taught movement as medicine internationally since 1989, Susannah is celebrated for her visionary weaving of scientific, psychotherapeutic, and systemic ecological paradigms, and for creating a safe context for people to let go within and discover healing and transformation. Passionate about being a lifelong learner, Susannah counts some of her most powerful learning in relation to our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, stemming from working with her 4 wild-born Exmoor ponies, or mirror masters, as she describes them, who live on the land which she tends together with Yaacov. Very interesting land that we've spoken about. Susannah's own deeply embodied knowledge of the creativity inherent in us all gives courage to her participants to dare to liberate themselves from fixed patterns, to explore, learn, experiment, evolving embodied awareness and the choicefulness which comes from it. She has worked as a consultant for the acclaimed King's Fund to bring movement medicine into leadership awareness of some of the NHS's most senior female leaders. Susannah trained in Gestalt psychotherapy in the Gestalt Center in London in the 1980s, whilst studying anthropology at UCL. Alongside her husband Yaacov, she trained in 5 rhythms with Gabrielle Roth and taught 5 rhythms together for 18 years, bringing this conscious movement practice to many parts of Europe. Since 2007, they have led the School of Movement Medicine, which has become their life's work. And I'll quote you, it is my privilege to empower people and organizations to discover embodied being, enabling them to plug back into the joy stream of life. Through growing the capacity for presence, potency, and partnership, people discover new avenues for co-creation with each other and with life. End quote. So without further ado, let's all give a warm integration conference welcome to Susannah.
I have a mic, and can you hear me okay? Oh, I've got it in my pocket.
I think
it is
good. At the back
there.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to stand in front of you, but I do want to stand where you can see me because I am a dancer more than an academic. So I'm going to move. So first of all, I want to really acknowledge the work you're doing and how you just presented that. I'm so happy it's happening in Exeter as well as generically in the world, and that you're holding that safe space where people can share. So important and yeah, life-changing. So respect. Thank you. All right. So I just want to acknowledge, first of all, that if you want to move so you're not facing my back, please feel free. But yeah, okay.
Wonderful.
So most of you were at Yaakov's, my husband's, movement session this morning. Is that right? Yeah. Would you put up your hand if you were there? If you were. Oh, right. Amazing. Okay. Okay. In that case, I'm going to take the liberty of just inviting you to stretch for a moment. Whether or not you were there, just feel your side ribs, your waist. Take a breath. Wriggle your shoulders. Move your feet. Yes, exactly. Stand up if you want. Have a little wriggle. Let's wriggle. Now, would any of you be brave enough to let your voices out? I'm going to sound really odd. Oh, great. Doesn't matter how you sound. Just let it out. One more. Oh, great, brilliant. Okay, when I was studying anthropology, I needed to do that so much, so much. I always felt like I wanted to climb the library walls, and I was in love with all that, particularly the philosophical stuff about the lens that we see the world through. But I couldn't stand not being alive in my body, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So just respect for all of you who do spend a lot of time sitting. And from what I've heard, there was a strong sense of engagement and of affect from the session this morning. So I'd like you just to invite you for a moment to either close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or bring your gaze down into your own little sphere. And take a few breaths and just listen to the sound and feel the sensation of your own in-breath and out-breath. Settle into your contact with the seat under you, the ground, the floor beneath your feet. And if you will, re-engage with one moment in the session this morning, or if you weren't there, one moment in this conference so far, where you felt something that was personally meaningful for you. Just let that float into consciousness, and whatever the thing is that comes, don't worry about whether it seems important or not. Just let it be and feel it. Feel it with your body. Where is it? Where does it live in your body? Particularly strongly. Can you find a geographical location for it? In your body, in the landscape of your body. Wherever it is. And your body, of course, includes your head and your heart. Just give it a little more breathing space. And if you will, smile towards that memory, towards that something, that experience. Give it more space. And then let your hands, and they could be very private, they could be very close to you, or they could be expansive, just become a shape that mirrors that feeling or that experience that you had. And if you will, do that without thinking. Just let your hands, trust your hands and the soul sign language of your hands. And then if you've got your eyes closed, just look at your hands. Open your eyes and look at your hands. And see if a word emerges, just one word that distills this experience and what your hands are saying. Okay. And then taking a breath in, and as you breathe out, let your hands go. Oh, a little shimmy. Would anyone like to share their words? I don't think we need a mic. I think you can just say it. Soft. Soft. Could we all repeat that just gently? Soft. Thank you.
Avocado.
Avocado. Thank you. One more. Seen. Seen open. Yeah? Is that right?
Seen, maybe somebody else.
No, I want to hear your one. Yeah. seen, like feeling seen, 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 let's seen. Thank you, beautiful, okay. So, thank you for all those words that we didn't hear as well as the ones we did. Great. So we've just been practicing a little bit of integration there, feeling it in your body, giving it breath, remembering it, feeling the emotional and physical interoceptive and emotional affective texture of it, giving it expression physically, giving it a word, sharing the word, having it echo back. So there's a lot there that we work with in how we work with integration in movement medicine. So if you were an indigenous person, say a tribe in the Amazon, and you take a medicine, a psychoactive medicine, and you open the gates and you're in that world and you receive a vision, when you come back to your tribe, that vision is not seen as unreal, it's seen as more real. You are opening the gates of reality to perceive things as they really are, really are. So you're not faced with this dilemma, which those of us who take psychoactive substances or have visions in any other ways in our culture here in the West, what we're faced with is, do we empower our experience with that sense of there's a truth there, there's a reality there, but then we're separated from our culture. We're like giraffes doing splits. Or do we rejoin our culture and abandon our vision? And how do we do both? And that's why I'm so grateful for what you're doing, because that's the integrative thing, that we can be with our vision, with others, in this reality of this world. But I think we do set up a real tension in ourselves because of the world we inhabit. And at the same time, there's this huge longing for what Thomas More calls the re-enchantment of the world. And that to experience, you use the word magic, the mystery, the magic, the awesome reality of life, and ourselves as part of that. And I'm really touched that academics, there's a whole academic discipline that Celia's leading here, and you're all, many of you, part of, which I think is, I don't know what you'd say about this, but is harnessed to that longing, for instance, for re-enchantment of the world, and through that to learn how to respect the sacred nature of life, including ourselves, each other, and the planet. Yeah. So this thing about integration, if I have a vision, if I'm an Achua person who takes ayahuasca and has an extraordinary vision when I'm 18, for example, in the Achua culture, I would not expect to drink ayahuasca again until I've realized that vision. That's completely different than what we do here in the West. Well, some of us do here in the West. So that we're given a vision, and then our work is to bring that into reality, to manifest it, which could take decades. And then when I've manifested that, then I will go back for the next compass, the next direction from Great Spirit. They wouldn't call it Great Spirit, that's an import from somewhere else. Unless you're a shaman, in which case you're drinking all the time, but that's your job and that's got its function. So how do we integrate? I think because we are social animals, and we are profoundly the most social animal, and we know how social elephants and dogs and wolves and horses, etc. are, but we are a whole nother level. Sharing is so important in terms of integration, and to be able to share in a way that we not only own our experience and are heard in it, but also in some sense reflected in it. I don't know if you know the work of Lawrence Anthony. He wrote The Elephant Whisperer. Do you know Lawrence Anthony? Yes, some people do. Whoa. He did this extraordinary work with a group of elephants in South Africa who had been traumatized. A lot of their fellow members had been murdered in front of their eyes, and they were so angry with human beings that they were about to be put down because they would kill a human on sight, and they're very powerful animals. And Lawrence Anthony was their last chance at being able to stay alive. And he did this work, which he's recounted in the book, The Elephant Whisperer. And they managed together. And there's this moment when they've formed a trusting relationship, and the lead elephant is a matriarch called Nana, he calls her Nana, and her calf are grazing in the savannah. You'll see why this is relevant in a moment. And he's watching Nana, and she's making a lot of noise, and she's flapping her ears, and she's doing these stomach rumblings. And he's standing there watching her kind of as an observer, saying to himself, oh, so this is how they communicate, with these ear twitches and these rumblings. And she goes on getting more and more agitated and looking at him with these big, little eyes, but strong eyes. And then he begins to realize that she's asking him something. She's asking something of him. And then he suddenly has a moment of self-perception where he's recognized that he's standing there like a plank of wood, witnessing this huge, beautiful, extraordinary elephant, matriarch and her calf, but he's not giving her any response. So he says to her, thank you, Nana. I see you. This is coming back to you, what you said, seeing. I see you. Thank you. And immediately her ears go down, and she stops rumbling, and she just goes back to feeding with her calf. And what he draws from that, and what he's learned from that, and then what I've learned from him, is all about, in the animal kingdom, communication is not just about sending. It's about receiving and then sending a signal back that I have been heard, you have been heard. I see you hearing me, seeing me. And that's profoundly helpful to my nervous system and to my sense of encouragement to go on. Thank you, Adrian, because you're there and you're seeing me. I'm seeing you, seeing me, seeing you, boom, boom, boom. It's self-reinforcing, and it enlivens us. So I became really interested in embodied listening and what it means to reflect back in a way that, as you were so carefully saying, isn't interpretive, isn't analyzing, isn't giving unasked for advice, but simply let someone know accurately, I've heard you, which is what Nana taught him. So I feel this elephant, Nana, going on teaching me about how important it is. And my ponies do the same thing. When I say to them with a tiny movement of my eyes sometimes, I've heard you, I understand. They relax, and then the cooperation and the co-creation and the joy, it was lovely to hear that in those words about me, the joy stream can continue, and then we can create something even more beautiful together. So in our work with movement medicine, how long have I got?
In theory, you have another 5 minutes if you want.
Excellent. In our work in movement medicine, we found that the community of mutual support, of respect for each other's autonomy and particularity and difference and similarity is a huge part of what allows people to integrate, grow, and keep growing. And if someone has a visionary experience and has no relational field of reference in which they can be seen, heard, and responded to, and respected in that change, it's really difficult to actually bring it into the world. We have a guy who works with us in movement medicine who was a heroin addict for many, many years, and he went in and out of prison where he was for serving time for all the things he did or felt he had to do in order to get his heroin fix. And now he's doing movement medicine, and he's out and he's clean, and he's moving towards actually becoming a professional movement medicine teacher. And he's an amazing guy. And he comes from a lineage which goes back to Jamaica and the slaves and all that. There's a lot of transgenerational trauma he's processing, and he's doing it really well. And I would trust him with my life. He's extraordinary. But what he's telling us now is the hardest thing about going clean, coming out and following his vision of how he can serve life is that his old friends don't want to know. They don't want to know him. They're trying to push him back in that box of who he was. Bert Hellinger, who was the founder of family constellations therapy, said, he used to say, it is far easier to suffer than to heal. And not just for us, but for our relationships, which is why this thing of relationality is so important, and bringing with us somehow our loved ones, even if they're not engaged in the same kind of activities as we are, communicating with them in a mutually respectful way so that they can support us and we can support them. Because doing it alone is just incredibly hard. My dad, Richard Darlington, didn't, that's not true actually. I was going to say he didn't take a psychoactive in his life, but he did at one point. He took medical marijuana and then he rang us up to say, I'm feeling a little weird. My legs are all fluffy. Is this normal? And we went, it's okay, Dad. You're slightly high. Go for a walk. Go for a walk. Come back. You'll probably have the munchies. Enjoy. Anyway, he was like, I've overdosed. It's too much. 2 minutes. Okay. Anyway, he was a man of incredible vision. He had really, really strong, compelling visions about work with homeless people, which people kept telling him that's never going to happen. It's impossible. It's way too audacious. And he succeeded, and those projects live on or keep flowering after he's gone. But he told me a few months before he died, because I asked him, it's like, what's the key, Dad? And he said, if you have a dream, if you have a vision, follow it, but do it together with others. Find other people who share that vision. And then he said, together, if you share that energy, you can do far, far more than you may have dreamed. But the key is, like Goethe said, begin it now, get together with others and travel. Don't hesitate. And don't be attached to results. That's in God's hands. He was a Christian who didn't really believe in God, but he was like, yeah, leave that to God. You just put your whole heart into it. And like the Actuar, be willing. The integration and following a vision that you really care about can take not just days, weeks, months, years, decades, lifetimes even. It may be realized by your great-great-grandchildren or those of your neighbor. Okay.
Thank you so much, Susannah.